The Olympics, specifically American sprinter Noah Lyles, recently revealed after his bronze medal winning performance in the 200 meter, he had COVID on Tuesday, 2 days prior to his race. On the track, at the race's conclusion, Lyles would take a knee. He would signal he badly needed water and was taken off in a wheelchair. His competitors, they took some shots.
I think for me, I can't be the face of athletics because I'm not an arrogant or a loud person like Noah. So I believe Noah is the face of athletics.
That is Letsile Tebogo of Botswana, per ESPN. Tebogo became the first African to win the 200-meter sprint at the Olympic Games. In addition, it is his country's first ever gold medal. What makes it all the more impressive with Lyles, depending on your taste, is that he has asthma, then he competed with COVID. He'd say after the race, I was quite lightheaded, and the shortness of breath and chest pain was definitely active. But after a while underneath, I was able to catch my breath and get my wits about me. I'm doing a lot better now. This is by far the best day I felt out of the last 3 days. I still wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I definitely would say I'm closer to like 90%. As for some who may be asking, why was he even able to compete with a positive COVID diagnosis per Scientific American in the past 2 weeks? At least 20 athletes have tested positive for the coronavirus. Infected athletes may still train and compete in events, and so far, many have. Here's what you should know. The Paris Games the IOC saw what happened in Tokyo, and they are pretty much saying, we want to pretend like it doesn't exist. They dropped all previous COVID protocols. They're approaching the disease as if it were the cold or flu. It is not. Officials now allow athletes and teams to determine for themselves how to prevent or respond to infection. It's shocking. Dr. Brian Suter, a must-follow channel on YouTube, gave his 2 cents on Noah Lyles competing.
I don't think that was a dangerous, crazy decision. Remember, there's varying degrees of severity when you have a COVID-19 infection. And if you have mild or are essentially asymptomatic, no fever, no severe chest pain or severe cardiopulmonary symptoms, I think it's reasonable to have that discussion and allow the athlete to try to go out there and compete, especially when it's a short race and not a sport where you're going to be exchanging a lot of respiratory secretions and saliva like, say, basketball or soccer. You're pretty isolated on the track. It's a short duration. And so I think the decision to let him run was completely reasonable and completely safe.
Lyles would be quoted as saying in The Guardian, my first thought was not to panic. I've been in worse situations and I've run with worse conditions. We just took it day by day, trying to hydrate as much, quarantined off. I definitely say it's taken its toll, for sure. But I've never been more proud of myself for being able to come out here and get a bronze medal. Furthermore, this is now the 2nd successive Olympic Games that the coronavirus has likely cost Noah Lyles an Olympics 200-meter gold. As his coach, Lance Brauman, has since said, Lyles struggled with having to isolate in 2020 and 2021, and it affected his mental health and his subsequent performances at the Tokyo Games, where he also went on to win bronze. So there's that.
Overnight, Lyles, who was expected to compete today in the men's 4x100-meter relay, taking to Instagram to address his future at this year's Olympic Games, writing, I believe this will be the end of my 2024 Olympics. Whether you were rooting for me or against me, you have to admit you watched, didn't you? See you next time. In a statement, USA Track and Field stood by Lyles' decision to compete, saying they had adhered to the guidelines set by U.S. Olympic Committee, the Centers for Disease Control, and the IOC to prioritize his health, the well-being of our team, and the safety of fellow competitors.
On those policies set, the 4-letter network ESPN would report the moment the test came back positive, Lyles left the Olympic Village and was quarantined at a nearby hotel. He also said he was administered whatever medications he could legally take without causing problems during post-race drug testing. Paxlovid was among the medications that he would take. That's per a USA Track and Field spokesperson telling ESPN. Of note, Lyles hoped to become the first American man to complete the Olympic sprint double since the great Carl Lewis 40 years ago. He was hoping to bag 3 golds as well. Now it comes and appears to be an end for Noah Lyles. On him taking a knee and being wheeled out, he would say he was lightheaded, the shortness of breath, the chest pain, but he was able to catch his breath and get everything back together. COVID has been the story not many want to address and discuss at the 2024 Olympics. 5 players on Australia's women's water polo team and Team Great Britain's swimmer Adam Peaty tested positive for COVID just last week. The Times would have more of not only teams, but individuals and medalists who would test positive for COVID. Via Time magazine, a spokesperson for the Olympics would say the organization is encouraging athletes to practice good infection control behaviors such as wearing a mask in the presence of others, limiting contacts, and washing hands regularly with soap and water or using hand sanitizer. So basically they're like, y'all, you're on your own. From the outlet in Paris, the fans are back, virtually none of them masking, and there is no regular testing of athletes. A spokesperson for the USOPC said in an emailed response to Time that American athletes are generally tested only if they have symptoms, such as a persistent cough, fever, or sore throat, or if they are just generally feeling unwell. Let me be very clear about this. There are likely swimmers going into the Seine after the billions of dollars that Paris and France allocated of taxpayer money to clean up the Seine, only for rain to likely demolish it. Swimmers went through potentially getting the Zika virus in Rio 2016, COVID in 2021 in Tokyo, and now the Seine with potentially Ebola, because they have waited for this moment. For the Olympic committees, the IOC, respective governing bodies and federations, to put it on the athletes to say, hey, if you're feeling unwell, could you tell us? They're not going to. It's impossible to think that unless it is very bad, like Noah Lyles, who has asthma and had to take precautions. It's almost like a football player getting dinged up, but not showing that he's dinged up, even though he's not all there. And then saying, hey, if you suffer what you believe is a concussion, you got to tell us. That dude is fighting for his life on a roster. That dude is fighting for his life in the form of supporting his family with his next contract or trying to even get a second contract. How do you expect athletes to do this? It's mind-boggling that they would believe, hey, you just got to tell us. From Sci-Fi American once more, because the Olympics want to play the angle of this is the cold, this is a flu, yada, yada. Unlike the flu or common cold, COVID is now surging across the U.S. and many regions of Europe, thanks in part to new, more transmissible strains of SARS-CoV-2. They would go on. COVID also takes a more serious toll on the body than either colds or the flu, says Peter Chin Hong, an infectious disease doctor at UCSF Health. While most Olympic athletes are healthy and have access to cutting-edge medications, young people sometimes display mixed responses to infection. Athletes with comorbidities, such as United States gymnast Suni Lee, who lives with kidney disease, or United States swimmer Katie Ledecky, who has another syndrome. Well, they may be more vulnerable than others, and even mild COVID symptoms can impair a person's performance. I leave it up to you guys. What say you? If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.